Hello and welcome to another episode of the digital afterlife of grief. I am Ginger Lou and I am going to be talking about the death tech industry and why it's booming and will it help or hinder how we grieve and what happens to all that data. So the idea of an autobiographical interactive legacy driven by markets, publicity, creative technologies, and years of digital grieving is finally upon us. The technology to speak to our dead relatives has been reintroduced to the consumers by death tech companies like StoryFile and other market-driven startups. I've talked about StoryFile in another post, so you can check that out. I use the term reintroduced because similar services have been around for more than a decade, but the technology was limited, and more importantly, consumers were not ready. There was a company called Etonym. You can still find it on the World Wide Web. Founder Marius Ursak started his company in 2014, and although it gained a lot of publicity at the time, it failed to ignite the imagination of enough customers to sustain it, and by 2018 the company had expired. We weren't ready for it then. It was all a bit weird. We were not ready for it, and it just shows how quickly in a short space of time, I mean specifically over the summer really, when you think about all this artificial intelligence where it's creating all these different art and creative words, videos and stuff. And why not death? Why not the afterlife? And it's just all this boom that's happened really very quickly. And look how quick we've gotten used to it. Of course, on the back of that is social media and websites and all the kind of stuff, blogging, bots, all kinds of stuff, texting. We've been dealing with grief online on Facebook sites, memorial sites, all kinds of stuff. So we have grown accustomed to all this kind of stuff. I mean, even 10 years ago, death tech seemed like a science fiction nightmare that had been fictionalized in popular culture. Think of the Black Mirror, Be Right Back episode 2013. You can actually, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's still available on one of the streaming services. So I'm not actually going to say which one because I can't remember which one it is. But check it out because a lot of startups were created because of that episode. So basically, if you haven't seen it, it's where a widow purchases a replica of her dead husband who died in a car crash. And she starts at the cheapest service, which is just a bot. So she texts him when she's particularly, right after basically he's died. So she's full in bereavement, full in grief, and really at the most vulnerable time. And so she finally, out of loneliness, because her family can't be there for her 24/7, not even her sister. I mean, that's just life. That's how it is. She gives way to her grief and is locked into owning an exact body and mind replica of her husband. But, is it really an exact replica? I mean, the company knows what it's doing and feeds on the human need to stay connected with our dead loved ones at any cost when we're in the thick of bereavement. And isn't that just the case? That's when we're most vulnerable. So a lot of startups, as I said, watched that, had the idea of starting their own company. But also there's been a lot of research done on this at the time. 99% specifically, 9 out of 10 companies have had personal experience with bereavement. So you'll find that these founders had lost their dad, a sibling, that kind of stuff. They had the personal connection with grief, which ties into my personal reasons of doing this PhD in AI and photography and all that kind of stuff. Is because, I lost my mother, lost my dad 25 years ago, all these kinds of things. So it's grief is fascinating. It's fascinating. So as I said before, Be Right Back was aired in 2013, and together with the founder's personal experience with loss, and that episode really being an instigator to start a death tech company. I mean, just look where we are in 10 short years. I mean, that's less than 10 years. And even then, what a different world 2013 is. Things are happening so quick. It's quite frightening, really, isn't it? What would have been seen as creepy, we're talking about the uncanny valley. If you don't know what that is, have a look. territory. Even 10 years ago, when some death tech startups struggled to win customers, today is a different story. The death tech industry is a 100 billion industry and growing. And not all of these companies will survive, of course. I mean, even 10 years ago when these other companies were popping up, a lot of them don't exist anymore. So that's going to happen with any, innovation. I mean, you imagine all the apps that are out there. A lot of them, have fallen by the wayside. And it ties in with my research, the connection between what's happening now with the digital AI revolution, the same as photography revolution 150 years ago. A lot of things worked, a lot of things didn't, that kind of stuff. And it's market driven. It's driven by consumers and that kind of stuff. So Charlotte G in the MIT Technology magazine, check this article out because it's quite interesting. She was given access to a new service called Hereafter AI and asked if we were ready to talk to our dead loved ones through our communication devices. Hereafter's goal is to let the living communicate with the dead with technology that lets you talk. The digital replica is an authentic representation of the deceased and uses data from interviews while still alive. After their death, those left behind can communicate with their dead loved ones through Alexa, an app, or an Amazon Echo device. Startups working in the death tech or grief tech industry have different approaches but similar promises that enable users to talk by video chat, text, phone, or voice assistants with digital versions of a dead person. I mean, remember when Alexa was a novelty, and now it's basically like a vacuum cleaner. It's just there. We use it to do stuff. You'll always find me shouting at it, like pause, stop, and it ignores you, and or it's played the wrong song, or it just activates for no reason, which is quite spooky. But there you go. It as normalized in the house as a vacuum cleaner. It's something that we use to go about our daily lives, and but we does it make our lives any easier? We still have to work. We still have to put all these hours in. It's just these different things. So when G trialed Hereafter AI, she used her still living mum and dad, whose voice was lived inside an app on her phone, as voice assistants. California-based company Hereafter AI is powered by more than 4 hours of conversations her parents each had with a real human interviewer. G's parents were asked questions about their lives and memories, and in a space of a year, advances in AI and voice technology replaced human interviewers with a bot. I mean, that was like 2021. And such a small amount of time, human interviewers have been replaced by a bot. But you can see how these stuff can also really help, people who have dementia, which is going to be 1 in 3 of us, folks. It's that scary. 1 in 3 of us are going to get dementia. So, saving those life stories, saving those memories, is really essential, The smartphone has revolutionized our lives for good or bad, depending on your point of view. This ubiquitous device is used to communicate, document, and share our lives, and together with social networks, it has normalized all aspects of human behavior. So why not death, right? So Hereafter AI and video-only StoryFile aims to preserve someone's life story rather than create new conversations. And because of this, videos and audio are generic because anyone can ask a question. Technology doesn't differentiate between family and strangers. It doesn't recognize the familiar connection that makes us all human. Replicas sound and look like someone you love, but like my mother who suffered with dementia, it doesn't know you. So it's already pre-recorded. Anybody can ask a question, as I said, a complete stranger, and it will answer. So that connection that you have, say it's your mum, your mum is not going to recognize you, right? It's just pre-recorded videos. So I was thinking, well, why not save Zoom calls with parents and loved ones? Why not do that now and save them? And you'll see your real loved ones looking at you with love in their eyes and being funny and having that personal connection. And that costs you nothing, folks, costs you absolutely nothing. So, I mean, these videos would convey communications between families, wouldn't they? Startups have thought about this. So there's one called You Only Virtual. founded by Justin Harrison, which will launch next year, and it aims to address these personal connections, these issues of personal connections and not generic robotic video answers. And as it says on the website, to build individual virtual personas, or versonas, as it likes to call it, you use a little play on words there, tailored to the unique complexities of a relationship, Harrison says. Recounting memories won't capture the fundamental essence of a relationship. No, it won't. But this is why, I love this word essence, because this was part of my PhD proposal, actually, which I know that's really interesting to everybody, but it was because it ties in with photography and portraiture. I have a background in portrait photography and in portrait film, documentary film, that kind of stuff. And so essence is used, at the beginning of portraiture, where the essence of, because it's echoing what's happening in painting. It's trying to find the essence of the great man, because it's usually a man, and what he did, whether he was a writer, a thinker, and all that kind of stuff. So, if he was a thinker, an intelligent man, then he'd show us how big his head was, or whatever, So, or if he was a writer, then he'd be writing, be at a table posing with a pen or something. So, but the essence of the person. So, to have this repeated a lot, I've seen in these AI death tech startups, is quite interesting, I think, because it does also tie in with my research, and with regards to my proposal at the very beginning, was that because echoing my own work in trying to capture the essence of my mother, I knew I couldn't do it with one photograph alone. It was quite difficult. And so, in this today's world, I needed other things like the smartphone, autobiographical material like letters and cards and stuff like that. Well, I would say this day and age, well, really, nothing's really changed. We've had video recorders for quite some time, for decades. We've had obviously snaps for quite some time, and obviously, we write stuff and everything, and we've kept our stuff. So, that's been going a while. The only thing that's new is the AI and all that kind of stuff. So, and essence is an essential ingredient to who we are as individuals. 150 years ago, portrait artists and photographers aimed to capture the essence of the subject. As I just said, artists experimented with lighting for mood and props to indicate the individual's vocation, and pose to convey stature and importance in society. As technology advances and our dead traces become almost exact copies of the dead, how will we grieve? How will it affect how we grieve? Will it affect how we grieve? Grief is personal and individual. We deal with it in our own way. Digital clones of the people we love could forever change how we grieve. Could these digital replicas help or hinder the grieving process? The technology is so new that researchers have a hard time keeping up with the latest developments and applying its impact on human society. The thing is, we are so, we think we've come on because of the technology, and all that kind of stuff, but we still haven't accepted that we're going to die. How long have we been on this earth, and yet we still will not, do not, cannot, won't accept that we are going to die. We're all going to die, and it all comes to a great shock to all of us, doesn't it, that we die? Even when our pets die, it's like, my God, how could that have happened? But it's what happens, and yet none of us are prepared for it. None of us are prepared for it. So why would we be prepared in grief, and why would technology make it any different? But, these are things that we're going to try and find out. Humans need interaction and hold on to memories and objects like photographs, but in the past, communication has always been one way. Now the bereaved turn to digital replicas for comfort, and some possible two-way stuff going on. The ethics of creating a virtual version of someone are complex. Who owns the data, and what about consent? There's also a risk for the recently bereaved that this kind of communication could prolong grief, and they could lose their grip on reality. In June this year, Amazon introduced Alexa reading The Wizard of Oz in the voice of a boy's dead grandmother. Her voice was artificially created. Alexa's senior vice president, Rohit Prasad, said, while AI can't eliminate that pain of loss, it can definitely make the memories last. For young children, I believe, who believe in Santa Claus and don't understand the concept of death. They just do not understand the concept of death. That if the goldfish has just died, the next day they will be looking for it. Where is it? Because they don't understand the concept of death. So, wouldn't this mess up a child's sense of reality when they're led to believe that their dead relative is in fact alive and communicating from a device in the kitchen? A service that creates a digital replica of someone without their participation raises complex ethical issues regarding consent and privacy. Companies are not obliged to check that the users of their services are consensual or in fact have died. There is no law stopping anyone from creating an avatar of another person. These are the new norms around legacies we leave behind in the digital world. There are also family concerns. Not all families are in agreement about how they want their loved ones remembered. My sister, for example, was adamant that she never wanted to see our mother resurrected as a bot or some other digital entity because she felt it was far too creepy and painful at the same time. Grief psychologists look at this new technology as a healthy way to connect to an avatar, but emphasize that bots will not replace human relationships. They warn that putting too much weight on technology could develop a phantom of personhood that immediate grief could cause. So this is like prolonged grief, just not accepting that the person has died and you're not able to get on with your life. What is a good amount of time? They say it's 2-3 years or whatever. If it's still going on, you have a problem. You need to talk to a counsellor. You need to go to the doctor, really. Does digital privacy continue after death, and how safe is our data from cybercrime? What happens to social media accounts when we die? Most people don't even know what to do with their data, or that social media accounts like Facebook can be memorialized and legacy executors can be appointed. I didn't even know that until I started researching this stuff. Who thinks of it? Again, because we don't want to face the fact that we're going to die, even though we are going to die. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to face the fact of our own existence is coming to an end. So none of us are going to be prepared. We're all going to be left with all this stuff. Not that it matters to us because we're going to be dead. And, no one's obliged in your family to keep hold of it. I worry because, I don't have any children. So none of my stuff's going to be remembered or kept, I'm trying my best to digitize and memorialize and create a legacy of my parents' stuff, which is an ongoing project. It's taken quite some time and it will take time, so that their memories kept alive for grandchildren and all that kind of stuff. So a digital will also is a new type of inheritance to control which loved ones have access to digital data, passwords, storage devices, and subscriptions. Doesn't mean that they're going to keep the stuff though. But wills can be contested, as we know. Different countries have different legal systems and laws. Britain has no digital inheritance laws. The EU GDPR only applies to the living. Canada has digital executors. And Germany has a radical approach. And heirs receive social media accounts as tangible belongings passed to inheritors. Does any of this matter once we're dead? There's no guarantee, as I said, that those who are left behind will hold on to your legacy. And perhaps all that effort and money you put into creating an AI video legacy will one day end up in a flea market amongst Victorian post-mortem photographs in a container marked creepy. Now, how about that?